exams, William Hague practiced his speech-making. And, aged just 16, he told the Conservative Party conference to wake up to the views of young people.
They want a society where efforts and initiatives are rewarded instead of stamped upon. It's all right for some of you. Half of you won't be here in 30 or 40 years' time.
And 20 years on, Mrs. Thatcher, then party leader, was there to back William Hague's own bid for the job, boosting a campaign which earlier had faltered after rivals attacked Mr. Hague's views on the single currency. He had toyed with the idea of backing Michael Howard, but after sleeping on it, he launched his own slickly managed campaign in a Westminster restaurant and never looked back. He'd entered the Commons in 1989, and after a spell as Norman Lamont's parliamentary bag and brolly carrier, he got into John Major's cabinet at the tender age of 34 as Welsh Secretary. He was marked down then as a future Tory leader, the next but one. But the party has skipped a generation. After the election, William Hague and his bride-to-be Fionn expected to be planning their wedding. Now as Tory leader, he'll have a few other matters to deal with as well. Hugh Pym, ITN, Westminster.
And the latest on that as we go through the programme. Kenneth Clark is expected out any moment. We'll have his statement if we get it. Now, the rest of the day's news. Tony Blair gave his personal blessing to the controversial Millennium exhibition at Greenwich today, but at a price. He said its legacy must last forever, and the displays should be exciting enough to win over his teenage son. Helen Wright reports.
Visiting the site where work on the dome should begin next week, Tony Blair said he believed it would put Britain firmly on the map at a most historic of times.
Every single part of the world is going to be watching here because it's here that the year 2000 is going to be turned. Now, what are we in Britain going to show people? Are we going to show them a derelict site, or are we going to show them the finest exhibition that the world has seen?
But the Prime Minister has placed conditions on the Dome project. He wants to improve its management. They must, he says, make it an exciting national scheme that creates a lasting effect, and it must not be a burden on public finance. But one of the Tory ministers who launched the project says that's already the case.
Being brutal about the budget was always part of the agenda. The problem has simply been getting the government to stop mucking about and say yes.
The company that'll run the Dome says it's delighted by today's announcement, though it wants to study the detail of the government's proposals. Helen Wright, ITN.
The Jonathan Aitken libel trial was dramatically adjourned today after important new evidence came to light. It's believed to relate to Mr. Aitken's stay at the Paris Ritz. Mr. Aitken, a former cabinet minister, was not in court today to hear the adjournment in his case against The Guardian and Granada TV. A Liverpool man who ran one of Europe's biggest drugs rings was jailed for 12 years in Holland today. Curtis Warren was convicted of operating a £100 million racket to flood Britain with cocaine, heroin, ecstasy and hashish. And the government is preparing new laws to curb prescription fraud. The crime costs the NHS an estimated £100 million a year. Under new legislation, anyone deliberately avoiding payment would face fixed penalty fines. It was dubbed the battle between the small fries and the Big Mac. And today, the Big Mac won £60,000 in libel damages against two Green campaigners. But the longest trial in English legal history cost McDonald's £10 million. Jennifer Nadel reports.
The McLibel too emerged from court defiant and determined to continue their campaign against McDonald's despite today's ruling. The judge said they'd libelously claimed McDonald's caused starvation in the Third World and rainforest devastation.
It's my responsibility to protect our reputation, and that's exactly what we've done.
But the judge backed claims that the burger giant was cruel to some animals, paid its workers low wages and deliberately targeted children. The two regard that as a victory and say they won't pay their damages.
We're not going to pay the damages. McDonald's don't deserve a penny, and in any event, we haven't got any money.
They told us basically you're bashing your head against a brick wall. Well, whenever we come up against brick walls, we like to knock them down. And I think we've done that.
Although in law McDonald's won today's ruling, they're left with an estimated legal bill of £10 million and the allegations against them having been spread across the world.
This report.
The tension lasted to the end, MPs walking back to the Commons to hear the result. Once again, the Tory party confounded the pundits. Hague supporters were delighted.
We've got a clear majority for William Hague. That's good news. I think people want to see Ken Clarke and William Hague working together with the other leadership candidates.
Delighted with the result because I think Mr Hague's going to have a united shadow cabinet. He's taken a move away from European integration, and I think the party can now work together. It's been a dramatic result because we expected to be a tie, but I think that Mrs Thatcher may have swung it.
Clarke supporters were putting on a brave face.
Yes, it is disappointing, but on the other hand, what the party now has to do is to unite behind the winner. We have to get on with opposing the Labour Party.
Well, William's just made it clear. He addressed the 1922 committee and he said that he owes all the party the loyalty that they will want, and that we all owe him the loyalty of supporting him with all the strength we can, and I'm sure we'll all want to do that.
The result may have been a surprise, but for the Tories at least it was decisive, ending what's been a very bitter contest. Tom Bradby, ITN at Westminster.
On News at 10 tonight, will the Tories now unite behind their new leader? And beating the retreat, how British forces plan to leave Hong Kong in style. And just to bring you up to date, the new leader of the Conservative Party is William Hague. He won by an enormous margin over Kenneth Clarke. He said his aim was to heal the party and bring it back to power. It's reported he may offer Kenneth Clarke a senior position in his shadow cabinet. Kenneth Clarke picked up only 6 extra votes after the last round, seen as a reaction to his deal with John Redwood. No statement yet from Kenneth Clarke. That's Thursday's early evening news. Until 5:40 tomorrow. Bye-bye.